So the Occupiers Liability Act, thankfully, it's a relatively short act, and it's one of the few that's written in relatively straightforward English. Unfortunately, that doesn't always mean it's easy to interpret and understand the practical application of each of the provisions that we've got. But fear not, that's what we're here for. It's important to start with the basics, which is who does the Occupiers Liability Act apply to? And the Occupiers Liability legislation governs accidents that happen at homes, in commercial premises such as malls, supermarkets, and retail stores, in property that's adjacent to commercial or residential premises such as parking lots. And in short, it's situations where accidents occur on a premise other than those which are specifically exempt from coverage under the legislation.
So in instances where an occupier has been added as an additional insured, quite often you'll be dealing with a situation where the occupier has their own insurance policy, and then of course they've been added to the winter maintenance contractor's policy. That kind of scenario will potentially raise issues involving a concurrent duty to defend. So one important thing to keep in mind when you're looking at cases involving a concurrent duty to defend is that the fight is between insurers. If the insured has coverage under multiple policies, they can call on either of those policies to deal with their defense costs. However, there are mechanisms in place for overlapping insurers to get payment from one another if someone isn't stepping up to the plate. And that's generally known by a process called equitable contribution. So courts will recognize that it's only fair in certain circumstances to have a paying insurer be able to seek a fair contribution from non-paying insurers for defense costs.
So I'd like to start off by mentioning that today I'm going to speak about three specific areas of biomechanics that we look at in these kinds of cases. One has to do with motion or gait of the human body. The motion is dictated by biomechanics, and there's a set of motions that we expect when a certain event occurs. We can compare that expected motion to either statements or witness statements of what happened and see whether that motion makes sense. Motions occur due to the application of forces. So we also look at how forces are applied in these events to understand whether the motions make sense. Should a person have moved in that way if they slipped or tripped, for example? We also look at forces when there's a question of injury causation. Are the mechanics there for the injury to be caused in this incident? Understanding how the forces are applied can allow us to look at that injury causation to determine whether the forces are the right type or of the right magnitude to cause injury.